Welcome to Fit After 40. Today we have John Hardin with us. John's a race director who's used his races to encourage many middle-aged athletes to try new things and really push their limits in a caring community that he's created. While John doesn't do much racing himself these days, he does spend his free time training and going after what is known as an FKT, or a fastest known time. And he's the current holder of the Ozark Trail FKT and the Sheltowee FKT. Welcome to the podcast, John. I'm glad you could join us today.
Hey, Tony.
Yeah, it's good to have you here.
Good to
You've
be
got a
here.
lot of fans here in the Nashville area, especially. You're kind of our favorite race director, I'd say, in this community. So
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah.
uh,
Um, yeah, it's a awesome kind of job to have. And we can get into the details, but
absolutely.
a while back ago, there were no trail running race directors here in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's grown quite a bit.
So how did you get into the race directing thing? What was kind of the impetus to get you to do this? Because like I said, you've created this wonderful community here, and a lot of that really does fall on you here in this middle Tennessee area.
Mhm.
And
So I mean, well, not as far as I can remember, but since I was like 14 or 16, I've been putting on events. I've always, like, it's just something that I've always done. I come from a half of my family's Italian, so we have these big Italian dinners, and it was always just fun for me to be around family and friends. So you know, I enjoy entertaining people, and I enjoy putting things together. I think actually Chris can talk to some of this. I had a promotion company even before Hardwin Adventures, and even before that promotion company, I was actually a promoter in New York City, and so I would go all over the world doing private events for celebrities. And then I came back to Nashville and then started doing events here while I was going to college, and we would close down Demumbrium and things like that and do concerts.
right.
And we had, yeah. So I've always put on events. As far as Hardwin, Hardwin's a little bit different because it's more of a family, and now it's more of like kind of a community, which
Yeah.
is really cool. Um, so Hardwin came about with Cody Goodwin. So it's a combination of our two names, John Hardin and Cody Goodwin. And we were just kind of going all over Tennessee, rock climbing, going on running adventures, and we would just get done at the end of the day and just be like, man, we would actually see, I think it's Randy, yeah, Randy out in Chattanooga with Wild Trails. He was posting some pretty awesome events, and we had nothing in the Nashville area. And Cody's actually the one who brought it up, and he was like, why don't we just do this in Nashville? He's like, you have a farm, we'll just put on a short race and try it out. And we did. And I mean, it's a pretty rough race at the beginning. I mean, it was literally Tony just flags through the woods. No,
Which race was that?
it was called the Sasquatch Trot. It was a 6 miler. You had to drive out to where the Black Toe is. It was a six, and there was no trail.
It's
We had 40 people show up, and just
it's a
because,
good turnout.
yeah, it was just because we had friends. And from that, we were like, okay, it's like, let's just go big. And so Music City Trail Ultra was, out at the Cheatham, was that big move. And that took a
Mhm.
lot of work. And it took so much work. I think it scared Cody away for the first event because it's a lot. But I've been used to putting on events for a long time, and I'm used to the stress of it. It doesn't really bother me. So yeah, so he kind of dropped out, and I continued on and just started creating more and more events slowly, and building up the company.
You said you did other events in the past. What's the difference between doing a running event versus those events? Because I seems like there'd be more concerns because you've got people in the woods. They could get injured. They could get bit by a snake or whatever. They could trip over something. And
I
was
wouldn't
it?
I wouldn't say there's more or less concern. So you got to understand, in dealing with these events, you're dealing with a lot of drunk people out in these
Yes.
events, and you're liable for them, and so you have to be careful in that aspect. So that's actually more risk. Where here, it's that's not the atmosphere. I mean, there are some people that come across the finish line and want to get hammered, but
At least that's after the event, right?
it's kind of like, well,
Exactly.
I mean, but they're far and few, and it's so yeah. The things that are out in nature, there is a responsibility there, and there is a trust there between, um, you know, I am taking a risk, and the person running is taking a risk as well, and I kind of try to stress how difficult these events are.
Mhm.
And I think for the most part, there's been some incidents in the past of where, like, man, just that person did not belong out there and shouldn't have been out there, and got shell shocked and like said some things to me that were like threatening, as far as like, I could have died, I would have sued you, like this is unethical, things of that nature. And this is just running through the woods. I mean, nothing bad happened even. So but that hasn't happened in a really long time. That happened like in the second year.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think everybody kind of understands what trail running is now, and
Yeah.
what's required to be out there.
Yeah, I think the popularity of the sport has definitely grown quite a bit. Probably in the time you've been doing this, it has to have grown
Oh
a
God, yeah.
ton.
Oh, a ton. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
How
yes.
long has it been, John? When did you start Hardwin Adventures?
2010.
Okay,
Okay.
14
Mhm.
years ago.
Yeah.
That's a good run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to planning these events, John, like, where do you start when it comes to planning the routes? Like, obviously, you have your property that backs up to the game preserve. For those who don't know, John has a farm that backs up to a 22,000 acre hunting preserve in Cheatham County, and some combination of all of that is in the races. But where do you start when you're planning this?
Yeah, so it depends on the location. We have that game reserve pretty close by in Nashville. It's the National City. It's 22,000 acres. I have a 100-acre farm, or my family does, at the southern end of it, which is perfect, right?
It's awesome.
So that's nice. I have another family farm out in Watertown, Tennessee. That's 400 acres, in which we put a run that's got kind of like a cult following called the Black Toe on. So that's nice. So those were just
I
like,
love it.
you know, easy ones, right? So, and then the next, I mean, when I sit down and I think of an event, I think about the things that I want to do. There's several events actually that I haven't put out there that I would love to do. It's just from a time standpoint, I can't. I've always wanted to create an event called Suffer Us, to see who can survive. It's kind of like a Navy SEAL thing, training, or like just to see who can make it through the weekend. So it just depends on the location. There's another person approaching me right now, actually asking me to build an event on their property, and I have a couple ideas in that area, but it just really depends on what's available. So for like Fiery Gizzard or like Savage Golf, when the state comes to me, I look at the layout and what the possibilities are. So for, like, let's take Savage Golf, for instance. Savage Golf is a marathon or has been a marathon historically for a long time, but it's capable of so much more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we should have a rucking division out there. We should have
Oh yeah.
um, lower mileages out there so that other people can participate as well, because it's a really hard marathon. And then we should have some really extreme stuff out there as well. And that hasn't happened yet. So, as far as the like a 100K or something like that, or 100 miler, which it could potentially hold. So it just depends on the area and what it has to offer, and then I kind of go from there. Now, I also look at the gaps. So, we have some gaps in our market that other people are getting in other areas that we're not getting. Recently we brought on adventure racing, and we don't have any adventure racing in Tennessee, like hardly any. I hate to say that, I'm not 100% sure in East Tennessee, but I'm pretty sure there's hardly any adventure racing in Tennessee, and it's
Probably none in middle.
Alabama, and it's in Kentucky. And why aren't we doing it here? And the answer to that question is, it's hard. It's really hard to, like, put these things on and be successful in them. And the short story is, you're not going to be successful for a few years when you're starting out with these things. And so we're losing money on our adventure race right now, or barely breaking even. Actually, we broke barely even on this last one.
That's progress.
That's okay, because we're we're able to do that now. Our Hardwin is.
And that's a really great thing about your events too, is you really have opportunities for everybody to participate at some level at almost every event, whether it's rucking or it's just a running distance, but it's a short distance versus a long distance. And you mentioned black toe. I love that event. You know, this year is my third year doing the relay there, and that's the best way to kick off the year. I think it's at the very beginning of the year. You get some of your buddies together. You all drive your campers out there. You set up a ring, you know, with your campers there and build a fire, hang out, and it's just a community environment that's so good. And I love the way you open up to people. And this is, of course, the Fit After 40 podcast. So we're really interested in fitness communities of people that are in middle aged, and I think you do that very well. So what kind of goes into bringing that community spirit to something that is an event like this, you know, where people do get a cult following?
That is the fun part.
How do you do that?
How do I do the community part? I think the people part. You know, I could do a much better job at it, and I think I will grow into it even more. I think there's a lot more that this community, this whole running community as a whole can do. And I can get into that later. But as far as how I bring the community together, you know, Tony, I just try to be kind and I try to be, to anybody. I see a lot of different walks of life, people in a lot of different walks of life in the events that we do. I have people that are, don't hold the same beliefs that I do. And I see people that I disagree with. But one thing, you know, that I can see in a lot of people is that, you know, we're all pretty much the same for the most part. And I can find common ground with anything. And if I can find that common ground with somebody and understand them, you know, it goes a long way. And I think we often focus on too much of our differences. And we're way more alike than we are different. And so I don't really care. I don't really care what you believe in, those things. I just want to sit down and have a conversation with you, and be real with you. And that's kind of my goal, I guess, when I'm race directing. That's how I approach everybody in life.
I mean, that's great. And I think trail racing and running and rucking and all these events, these endurance events are uniquely good for that too, because
yes,
they're the kind of thing that breaks your body down over time with other people, and it does cause you to kind of see those differences fade away to some degree, because you're just broken down to just being another battered person out in the middle of the woods doing something.
That's right. Yeah. And we need each other, you know?
Yes.
We need each other when you're out there, and I think we, you know, just kind of forget those things. But I think the running and being through an act of going through something hard and having someone there with you, even if you don't even know that person, you can start bonding with them.
It builds camaraderie like nothing else does. It really, truly does.
Yeah, it's awesome. Mm-hmm.
Well, a really good example of something you've done recently was, and of course, unfortunately, we lost Hunt, almost a month ago now, or it's been more than a month, I believe, since we lost him. It was actually, but you know, kind of a sign of what kind of community you build, of course, is you built this community. And one of the runners that has run a lot of your races, Hunt, he was diagnosed with what ended up being a fatal cancer. And but that you were able to take that community and rally around Hunt and bring some help to his family. Talk a little bit about that and how that came together.
Sure. So, you know, Hunt announced. I met Hunt at the Cumberland, a race I used to put on at another farm that was 14,000 acres called the Cumberland Plateau Stage Race. Tony, you never got to do that one, did you?
I didn't, but I've heard stories about it, and I wish I had.
So good. It's like our own playground. But they've asked me to come back. It's just a lot of work, man. So I don't know. Maybe one year I'll revive it just for 1 year. But anyways, that's where I met Hunt. And you know, he's this guy with a huge tattoo across his face. He's a bit on the heavy side. He doesn't look like he should be out there, right? He looks like he should be kind of in a dark alley somewhere or something like that. This is the most fun, lovable guy, and everybody in the whole community just loved him. So he would just go race to race, and he has some pretty great stories. So yes, last year, September, I believe he put out on social media that he had stage 3 colon rectal cancer. And so I immediately reached out to him and said, "Hey, listen, you have a running community, and if you ever need us to be there for you in any way, please let me know. We can drum up money. We can do a lot of things for you. I'll spearhead it for you if you want me to, or if you want me to help in any way, I can." I said, "Just let me know." And he said his original, this was kind of new to him too, because I think he just found out. He said, "No, man, I think I'm good. I really appreciate it." And then about 2 weeks later, he texted me back and he said, "You know what? I think I'm going to need some help." And so yeah, so we were able to put the run for Hunt together, and we raised $14,000, and we had to go through Ultra sign up, so that was a mistake. But I thought it would bring the most runners,
Yeah.
And I wish Ultra sign up, and I should have called Jay at Ultra sign up but I didn't. So that falls on me. But so we raised 14,000. Hunt got around, I think it was $8,000 or $10,000 of that after taxes and everything. And yeah, and so we were able to raise quite a bit for him, which was awesome. And unfortunately, he still ended up passing away. But I think also, like, it really inspired me. That was one of the things that I was kind of mentioning beforehand, is that there's a lot more to do with this community that we can do. And that kind of showed the power of the community as well. And so what could be put in place is something like, I've been talking with some other people that I think would be good on a board like this, but something called like the runner's oath, where we actually look out for people within the community that need help. And I think something
really
like that
idea.
Put in place and would be really good for the community as well.
No, it's awesome. It's such
That's
a
a great
moving
idea.
thing that you did there, and trail running, I think it just is like it's a way that it's a thing that just brings people together, in such a
It
great
really
way.
is. Yeah.
I guess kind of get back to just kind of the nuts and bolts of it and we'll dig more into that later, but
Yeah.
I know that you have a plan to bring a 100-mile race
Oh,
to
God.
Middle Tennessee, and some of us are pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
I plan to be out there and toe the line on the first one you do.
Right.
I'm particularly interested because I imagine it's going to be, if I'm right, it's going to be about 15 minutes from my house.
Right.
It's
Right.
really convenient.
Helps.
Yeah, it will be. So that'll be called the Hardwin 100. And I do have it mostly laid out. Sorry, I don't have it built. So that's the building is the hard part. But we were out at the when we were doing all the adventure race flagging out there at the Cheatham Wildlife Management area. One thing I kind of found a highway way of building like trails, which is basically just doing like a lot of up and down. I mean, this would be on the ridge line, so it wouldn't be like straight up, straight down. But the park is big enough to support something like that. So it's going to be an absolute brutal race. I think it's going to be based off my capacity of what I can do. I think at the beginning it's going to have to be kind of a rough race, where it's like, but we'll see. I mean, I think it's going to build over time. So it's going to get there. It's going to start as a 50-miler, and then it'll probably build up to 100K. I think maybe we could get the 50-miler in next year. I mean, it's pretty clear. It's not exactly what I want, but yeah, as far as like the trail, but I'm building trail when I have to build on the side of hills with a pickaxe. So that takes a really long time.
Yeah.
I love that you characterize it as a tough 100-miler as opposed to the casual, easy 100-milers that are,
this is going to be a very tough 100-miler.
Right, as opposed to the easy ones that people
correct.
just do
there
casually
are
on a
easy
weekend
ones,
without any
there are
preparation.
easier ones, and there are very hard ones, and this will probably be this is going to be hard.
So you're building the trail yourself out there. I mean, you're out there with a pickaxe, literally building trail.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. It's not just. I would never claim it's always been a community thing. So it's
Sure.
always been volunteers. It's always been people that want the same thing that come out and they'll do a section and then they'll never come out again. I can't blame. No, there's people that are there is like a set. There's like 10 or 15 people that absolutely love building trail. And then there's like people that just do it out of the goodness of their heart that don't really love being out there. But either way, it's fine. We take what we can get. But yeah, it's a slow process, but I love building trail. It's very like kind of zen for me. So I got that going.
I took that almost a little personal because I haven't been out to volunteer for a while. So, but I will
Have you
be.
ever built trail, Tony? I don't think you ever
I've
built.
never done any trail building,
Okay, so
buddy.
then
I've
you're
only gone
fine.
out
You
there
don't
and
even
blown
know.
trails and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll have to try my hand at building trail too. If it means
It's a
getting a
little bit
race
more rewarding.
here, then I might have to get out there some. So
Yeah, yeah, that would be awesome. I can give you the GPS. You just do a little bit when you can.
that sounds good.
So in the is this going on in the Cheatham County, the WMA? Is that where
Mhm,
the trail building is going on? So
mhm.
I know there are some trails there, but it's not a lot, is it? It's mostly just like
So
heavily
you'll
wooded,
get
right?
so the majority of things that you'll find there that'll go fast for building is old logging roads.
Sure.
Um, and there are some like there is one like yeah, the trails, they're not, none of them are in good shape.
Right.
None of them are in good shape, except the ones that we built for the built out for the Music City Trail. I mean, I wouldn't even call them in good shape, but like
They're
we
good
use them
trails.
every time, every
Better
once a year.
shape.
Yeah, yeah, they're in better shape. They have a lot of trees across them and things like that, but they're okay. And that's another thing. So the Cheatham Wildlife Management Area is not a state park, so it is a huge amount of work for that event to take place. Like we have to go and basically clear the whole trail every year. Do
Wow.
what we can. And there was a
And
tornado that came down. What was it?
2 years ago.
No,
Yep.
last year.
Yeah.
They went through Cheatham, right,
Oh,
Tony?
actually, there was one last year and there was one the year before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's right.
Yeah.
So, um, I mean that I went over one hillside. My volunteers came back and said, "Listen, we can't even get through there." And I came and looked at it. It looked like the hand of God just came down on the hillside and just and it was cool because you could see all the trees going one way, and then you keep going down the hill, and at the bottom they're all going to the left. So that spiral is kind of, I don't know,
Wow.
but man, it's a ton of work.
What I will say too about John, he's downplaying the quality of his trails quite a bit because he does an excellent job. Him and the volunteers do a really great job of keeping those trails blown off. I've been in races in established parks that were where the trails were much worse than anything I've ever been
Oh.
I've ever run that you put on. They're always good. Even the years you're like, oh, it's gonna be really bad out there. It was never that bad. So.
Well, I learned how to like clean trails, and it took a while to get there, but like the first few years, um, we would never even weed eat them or anything. They were just raw. We
Raw.
wouldn't even blow them. So
Yeah, up here there's a trail that I go out on, Loyal Sock State Forest in Pennsylvania, and I'm pretty confident that I am the only one using this trail from year to year. I mean,
yeah,
trail is a really generous term. I download it to my watch and I'm like, well, my watch says I'm on the trail. So this,
yeah,
maybe I'll see a blaze within the next mile or two. So,
yeah. I've been on trails like that. Yeah.
So do you blaze
Absolutely.
the trails? Well, once you obviously you're clearing path and so forth, and then
Yeah.
are
So
you blazing?
yeah. So well, I don't blaze like I don't put blazes on trees if that's what you
Okay.
mean. Yeah,
How
but
do you mark it?
we'll find a course of the woods. We'll pickaxe, and we'll cut down trees and we'll build usually like a good day is like maybe a good day is like a quarter of a mile would be a good
Wow.
day with like 4 or 5 volunteers. Yeah,
No,
Wow.
it's a lot.
it's a lot.
It's a
That is
lot
a
of
lot.
work.
It's a lot of work. It's hard work.
So let's start a little bit into you. We've talked about your business and your races, and those are great. But let's talk about you a little bit because you haven't raced much recently, but you have gone after quite a few FKTs, and
Mhm.
you've had some pretty impressive attempts recently, and you hold a couple FKTs as well. First, I guess it's the Ozark Highland Trail, and I think I've heard, and you never told me this, but I think there was a somewhat near death experience that happened at some point during that FKT. Correct me
Yeah.
if I'm wrong.
So my first FKT was the Sheltoe.
Okay,
Second one was the Ozark Highlands Trail.
then
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
let's do it
Yeah. So
chronological.
Sheltoe, I was working at a company called Griffin Technology. It was an electronic company here in town a while back ago, and I'm a goal setter. So like I liked when I athletically, like I like to set goals for myself and then
Mhm.
work really hard to get to those goals. That's just kind of like how I operate. Um, so I saw that there was, I've always been a big fan of the Big South Fork. I went there as a kid quite a bit. It was a lot of my like um, childhood going there and camping. Some of my first camping trips, my first camping trip alone was at the Big South Fork. So I was like, what can I tie together in the Big South Fork that would be pretty big?
Mhm.
And then I was like, holy crap, there's this 300-mile trail through that connects all the way up through Kentucky. And I was like, well, let's do that. And I've never even run like, I don't even think I ran at an ultra when I said I was going to do this. Um, so I had no idea how to train at that time, at that point in time. But I've always been kind of like a little bit of a dirt bag. I'll go out and venture and do anything. I've always been a risk taker. So I just yeah. So it took about 4 years where I kind of got my rhythm of like, okay, I mean, if I'm going to be hitting like, I think I was hitting like 42 miles a day or something like that on the Sheltoe, something close to that. So it took a while to realize like what I was doing. And I still, it's a very soft record. I think it recently got broken in October of last year. Jason Wish broke it. So yeah, I didn't really know what I was doing. I wasn't as fine tuned as I am now, or as far as like how to do these things. I'm pretty dang good at them now. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but toot toot. I mean,
Right.
I got it dialed in now on the processes and what it takes to like on the efficiency of how you run these things. So yeah, and I really enjoy the long run, kind of like Fleming. I really enjoy being out there for a long. It's meditative to me, and it's a journey, and it's a very deep journey. It's a hard journey. It's a hard journey for everyone involved, and people really kind of become it, and you become it. And I don't, I love races. I don't get that experience from races. And so I do, I think I get my fill of them with me being a race director, and I still enjoy them. Um, but this is kind of, I've always loved really, really big adventures. And so I kind of lean more towards that. So the Sheltoe, yep, got the FKT on that. I think I broke it by like 12 hours. And then the Ozark Highland, I started kind of realizing like, okay, I need to work on some things. And so I really worked on my efficiency and coming in. I set standards for myself as far as like my time to sit down, my time to sleep, things of that nature, and kind of set and worked a lot more on my running and how I ran. And it started, that's kind of also where I started strength. I mean, I was already pretty big from a muscle standpoint, but more focused for a runner.
Mhm.
So yeah, the Ozark Highland is a really good record. It's actually, that was a really hard run. So I'm pretty proud of that one. The Chateau, I know I can
Yeah,
go back and take several days off. I think I can do it probably in 4 or 5 days.
It's a big
Probably 5
difference.
days.
That's a
Yeah.
big difference.
yeah. Wow.
So you said that when you did the Sheltoe that you didn't really know how to train. I guess you just went out and ran,
I
but
just
you had
did it.
dialed it in better for the Ozark. How would you contrast your training plans between those two runs?
So, the Sheltoe, like, okay, so I have a wife and kid, so they expect me to be around at the nighttime. So for the Sheltoe, I was like, okay, how can I do this? Because I have to start running. So I would start running. I would get up at 3 or 3:30 a.m. and I would start my running there. And I just did a lot of running, and it was running without purpose. So it was just running just to run. I didn't understand, like, I just knew I needed to run. And so, that's great for building kind of those endurance muscles.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't doing anything for my speed, and I wasn't doing anything for my sustainability as far as, like, I don't know, as far as putting in a good time. So as far as the Ozark Highlands, I started focusing more on speed work and not as much distance. And yeah, it made a huge difference. And now I've even come even further. So I think in my training and how I train for these things. I'm sorry if that didn't answer your question, though.
No. It does. Absolutely, because my journey has been pretty comparable. Prior to this year, I would just go run and just run, and this is the first year that I've tried to train with any kind of structure, plan, anything. Prior to this, it was like I'm just going to go run until I get tired. When I get tired, I'm going to turn around, and that was my training. And yeah, my fitness improved, but since I've started doing a more structured training plan, my pace has improved. It matters. It makes a big difference.
It makes a huge difference. Yeah.
How much rest do you get on those?
Rest for, like,
how much rest on when you are in the middle of an attempt? How much rest are you getting?
So it really depends on the attempt. So, like, let's say for the Sheltoe, I rested a lot. That was, like, I would come in, I'd sit down, I'd eat a sandwich, I'd talk, maybe have a beer. Like, there was no, like, concern, or, like, there's no way in heck I would do that now. So for Ozark, it was completely different. I was in and out in no time. I never sat. I never slept. So it was 164. But that was 164 miles. So I could do that pretty much without sleeping. So I did the first 100, and then I think I took a 10-minute nap on the ground. They got me up, started running again, and then I think the next morning I ran through the night, and then the next morning I think I took another 10-minute nap, and then another. So I think in total I slept like 30 minutes on the 164. But I would just in the aid stations, it's just, it's like a race car. Just you're changing out things as fast as you can go. You're constantly moving. You don't sit down. Yeah, that's it.
How long did it take you to recover after you got done?
The Ozark wasn't that bad, actually. Yeah, the Appalachian Trail messed me up pretty bad. That was a different story. I think I'm still kind of recovering from that in some way.
I was hoping we could go there next, actually, the Appalachian Trail attempt. Yeah. And start off with, how far did you make it? We were all tracking you, of course, from your InReach online, and I forgot exactly how far you made it, though. It was a long way.
I think it was 700. Stephanie's going to hear this because she knows more than I do. Like, I just run, right, and she
was well rested.
They're like keeping track of everything. I think it was around. I think it was like 777 or 778 miles.
About a third.
With that,
about a third of the total distance.
And you were ahead of pace. And first off, it's funny you say that about your wife, because that's the same thing. Like, she plans all my races. Like, I've got my training plan. She totally created it, and I'm just like the legs that go and do it, So that's kind of funny. But
to be frank, though, Joy plans everything. She made a PowerPoint for our trip in August to the Wonderland Trail. Just talking about, she's like, I prepared a PowerPoint. Like, oh,
it was a good one too.
It was a good one, yeah. No, I have absolute faith in her planning abilities. So
they're very good. Very good. I lucked out there. But anyway, so you made it almost a third of the way, and as I recall, you were ahead of pace the whole time, weren't you? I don't think you ever fell behind.
Well, no, I did. So
Okay.
the through Maine, my goals were to. So I was racing Carl Meltzer. He was the current FKT holder for the southbound, and then Karel Sabah, I think his last name is.
Yeah.
He has the overall record for north, but it's also a northbound record. And just so you know, I think I can. I'm pretty positive that I can beat Carl Meltzer's time. I don't know if I could beat Carell's time. I mean,
It's amazing.
it's so amazing. Yeah, I think I've I've never been like, I don't know if I can do something. I don't know if I can do that. And like that's it's just it, anyways.
Well,
He
then he
always
went
says
on
that he
to
had like
take
a
the
perfect.
PCT. So
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, I had every day was wonderful. I'm like, man, every day is miserable on this thing. Anyway, so I started out in Maine. So I was going southbound, and I Meltzer's from New Hampshire, and the terrain in New Hampshire is not my type of terrain. It is
Steep and
brutal,
rocky, right?
deep and rocky.
Yeah.
I'm a bigger runner, so those downhills really tax me. Um, so I knew I had to get ahead of him in Maine. So I got a pretty good lead on him going through Maine, like the 300 miles through Maine. And then New Hampshire hit, and my goal was to be maybe a little bit ahead or tied with him coming out of New Hampshire. And so coming through New Hampshire was absolutely brutal on me. There were some logistic things that went wrong, um, but I came out of New Hampshire tied with Carl. The day so, and then my next goal was okay. After that, I need to calm it down, recover a little bit, and then it's going to be a full on race. And then I need to start putting in, start recovering, put in some more time, really hit it, and start trying to knock it out of the park. So my idea is just to survive the two, Maine and New Hampshire, which are the toughest states.
The hardest states.
Besides Pennsylvania, Roxylvania in the north. I never got to visit it. I was right on the edge. Anyways, so the day after the Whites, literally the day after, I had I thought it was a full tear, but it's just as a tear on my quad, and I could barely maintain like a 2 mile per hour pace. So I was legging through the Appalachian Trail and losing ground with Carl, and then soon I was like, after like 3 or 4 days, I think I was like 20 miles behind him, which is nothing, to be honest with you. Like we can make that up. The problem was that I was getting in so late and so exhausted just to keep like a maintaining, like I couldn't keep pace anymore. And so, my wife says I should have stayed back out there and just recovered, because I was recovering and I was getting faster. But I felt like I was too far behind. And so I called it.
how was that calling it? It has to be really hard after you put in that much work and then the mental battle you had to go through to like make that decision.
So I would go to sleep at night. Um, it's really hard with a crew out there that's pretty dedicated to you. I feel more dedicated to them than anything else. So it's really it really kind of holds you to like your crew, like holds you to like staying out there. So the fact that they're out there for you and doing all this stuff uh, really means a lot to me. So I would fall asleep in the van, and we just come in, and I'm just in so much pain. My whole body is so much pain, to the point where you think, and maybe it's true, you're doing real damage to your body.
Right.
And you are doing real damage to your body,
You
but
break it down.
yeah, well, like permanent damage. So you're like sitting there, you're
Yeah.
like, man, I'm in so much pain. What am I doing to myself? So I would sit there with like in pain and like kind of like tearing up a little bit throughout, because I would wake up around 1 a.m. every morning. And because that would be like when the Tylenol ran out or something like that. And I would just, my whole body would be throbbing. And I would sit there and I would just think like, how am I going to tell my crew in the morning that I'm going to quit? And that was always a huge argument with me. And and so I'm like, okay, when it, I try to get back to sleep, but I could, it's kind of like half sleep, half awake thing. And then 3 a.m., 3:30, they'd open that door again and they'd start cooking pancakes or oatmeal and coffee. I'm just sitting there and like, just say it to him, just say it to him. And I'm like, nope, you're gonna get back out there and you're gonna go. And so yeah, that was hard for me, just because I'd never been through that much pain. So, but then something happened about like 2 weeks in. It didn't matter anymore. Like just went to a place where it doesn't matter. The next day you're getting out there. It doesn't matter how much pain you're in or anything like that. And then it kind of went away.
Oh, so you had a hard time at the beginning, and then you kind of worked through it and were able to do that. But then in the end, it was just
I was just too slow.
Too slow.
Yeah.
Well, and injured. It sounds like you were
injured. I mean, you had a quad tear.
pretty. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's
not
if
not
it
something to
can't
mess
heal,
around
you're
with.
not. You can't make up the ground if you can't heal. I mean, that's I don't know how you would
Yeah,
do that.
I should have given it another week or so, but it is what it is.
Huh.
Yeah, it was a very hard experience, and yeah, it kind of wrecked my body for a little while, like as far as my eating habits and things like that, because I was eating so much. I think it kind of threw some things out of balance as well. So it's hard. These kind of things are not healthy. So this is not about being fit over 40. This is about being stupid over 40.
And you're gonna try again.
No. I mean,
You're not gonna try that one
I
again.
would do it. I would do the Appalachian Trail again, and I would if I could train properly for it. If I had the finances to do it again, essentially, where I could support myself, where I could. I feel like I can do it and train properly for it. I feel like I know what I need to do in order to be successful, for the southbound attempt.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't see that happening again unless a sponsor wants to pay for it, which I'm just not going to put my family through it again because I need even more training. So
It's kind of like with me, it's running for office. I've decided I'm not putting my family through that again. But
yeah, I didn't know that.
No, I mean, and it was,
awesome there.
it was a valiant attempt. And I think my favorite scene from the whole training process, I don't know if you saw this, Chris, but at one point you had some kind of social media post up, and it was like you in your garage with like 3 cement blocks under your treadmill or more. And you had somehow, like, I think you were venting the dryer into the room to make it even hotter.
I did not see that one. That's funny though.
Yeah,
That sounds miserable. But I guess those are the conditions you're running in, right? It's 100 degrees and you're going up the side of a mountain.
Yep.
No, I mean, it was an inspirational training for sure. I don't even like to get on a treadmill, much less one while my dryer is venting in the same room. So your latest attempt was the Natchez Trace, of course, and that sounds miserable for its own just because it's on the road mainly, and I don't like running on the road much. But
Tony, it was great.
Really,
I don't like running on the road that much either. I don't mind it as much as I used to, but man, it's just such a cool road.
It is a cool road.
It's a really cool road. I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoy that I wasn't going up like, dude, AT is just like mountain, and like, guess where you're sleeping every night? In the middle on the road where you have to go down to the road. And guess what you're doing first thing in the morning? Climbing a freaking mountain. It was really nice just to like, I love kind of like patterns. So it was really nice just to kind of like get in those kind of patterns and stay in there for a while and travel really big distances and still feel okay. I felt great the entire time through the Natch. I wasn't trained properly at all. I just felt that my base should be able to do it, and I was wrong. Yeah, it was. I think I did 80 miles the first day, maybe 79, and then second day, I can't remember. It was either like 70 or 72. And I felt great. I came in, I was like, yeah, it's a great day. And we were in good spirits. I just woke up and dude, I couldn't move my right foot and it was in so much pain. Yeah. And I was just like, well, I could continue on and maybe run through it, but it's not what I want to do for the Natchez. I think the Natchez should be ran really well. It's a speed course for, compared to what the stuff that we typically do.
Right.
Yeah.
It's pretty fast. And I think the record should, I'm not saying anything about anybody else's record. I just think that, like, for me, like, I want to run it super fast. And I want my record to reflect that. So that's the standard I have for it for when I run it.
So I assume we can expect you're going back for that.
Absolutely. I've already started. I'm started training. I just started in the last like 3 weeks, ramping up training. I'm going to train this time. So I trained a little bit last time, like 2 months, but I'm going to get a pretty good lead on it this time.
People train longer than 2 months for their first marathon, so I think you can maybe you might benefit from some additional months on there.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't. I just figured because it was road that I was just like, whatever. I can take the pain, but your tendons.
Road can be.
Road can be
brutal in its own respect.
Yeah,
that
consistent pattern. Actually, your tendons get locked in that, and then you just get so tight. I don't know what happened to my right foot. I mean, it never even bothered me until 12 o'clock that night sleeping. I just woke up. I was like, what the hell? And it just felt like somebody was stabbing me right in my foot.
Wow.
And we tried to get, and I lay there all night. I actually reminiscent of Appalachian Trail. I had like, this hurt more because it's just a sharp pain instead of like dull, achy. I was just like, man, please go away. I let Keith sleep because I knew he was tired. He was sleeping right next to me, and I woke up in the morning. He's like, "Oh, you ready to go, man?" I was like, "Dude, I've been up all night, and I've been like crying beside you. Like, my foot is in tremendous pain." He's like, "Well, we gotta get back out there." So we tried for like a mile, and I was like, "I can't even pick up my foot." And maybe it could have ran itself out a little bit, but again, it's not how I wanted to do it. So, going back out there in December and hoping to put in a pretty strong run.
You're going to do it this year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's great. And the trace is 444 miles. Is that correct?
44 miles. Yeah.
444.
And I'm running to Nashville. Yeah. I want to end up
Nashville.
Yeah. I want to end up Loveless. I mean, that's like the best way to end it, right?
Absolutely. I would eat an entire fried chicken.
I'm going to eat the whole. Yeah, I'm going to eat the whole.
And all the biscuits that they'll bring me. Absolutely.
So, it's always nice to finish near home too. So,
yes.
A little bit of the hometown crowd when you get close by.
Absolutely.
So looking forward to that.
So my only other question, well, I have one other question after that, but was essentially what your plans are for the future. I assume Natchez. Do you have any other FKTs you're thinking about? Anything else cooking along the way here? Or
I mean, I'll eventually have to go back out and take my shell toey back. That's my first one, so I got to take that back. I like the idea of doing things on my own without a crew. There is a great part of having the crew out there.
Yeah.
But there is something interesting to being out there on your own and trying to move quickly. So I am interested in that and going through that process. And maybe that's something as I get older, I can kind of look into. But yeah, I don't have any specifics. So Natchez is I try to do one a year. I try to do an FKT a year if I can, or maybe every like year and a half because it takes a little while to recover. It takes about, typically, Chris, about 2 months to recover properly.
2 months.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But for the AT, I maybe it was the COVID I got right after it, but I was pretty wrecked for a while. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any specific plans, but I'm always game for something.
Yeah. You talked a little bit earlier on about kind of the meditative state of being on your own in the woods on the trail, and you mentioned that you'd like to try something without a crew. What's the longest distance you've done without seeing another person?
Well, I mean, like, you mean without like aid, or
yeah,
without
just on your own?
I think 60 miles.
I meant as far as time, like 60, because that's a whole day, I suppose.
Yeah, that's about a day.
Yeah.
Um,
So would you try one of these long ones totally solo, no support, just all your gear
I
on your
would stick,
back? And
so I would stick to something like underneath the 300-mile range. That
yeah,
would be about what I would be looking for. 300, anywhere from 300 to in between 100 and or 200 and 300, probably around that range.
something you could do in a long weekend or under a week would be
Something where I
the
could
idea.
carry a load and still kind of get a little bit of speed.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
There is
some,
something about being totally out on your own though that
yeah.
is kind of liberating in a way for me anyway.
I totally
I
agree.
find that.
Yeah, um, yeah. I haven't done that in a while, so I could see myself getting into that. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I was thinking, if some things that I've heard from you, Tony, that you have a podcast called Fit After 40, and you're not lifting weights. So I'm just kind of wondering what's going on here.
I'm working on that. I need to lift weights. I know that's the thing I don't do, and
Got to do it, man.
I like to run, and so I know that's one of the things I need to do so I can continue to do what I like to do. But
Hmm.
so I do need to incorporate a lot more of that and less of the running. But that does lead kind of well to the last thing I was going to ask you, actually, and that is, I do this because I love to run. I love to be out there in the woods, and it's just where I like to be. Like I always say, I like it because I can go run in the woods with my dog like I'm 10 years old, and it's fantastic.
Hmm.
Um, so I like to ask every guest we have on here that does endurance events, like, why do you do it? Like, there's got to be something more than like, I do it because I want to accomplish this goal, or I do it because I want to be in great shape. You obviously, anybody that gets out there and does, anything I'd say past the marathon distance, really out on the trails, has got something that drives them to do that. And what is it for you?
With capability, and this is also something that I think once you start doing weights and getting into weights, you'll start getting some of the same endorphins that you get from running, um, because there is a freedom there, that I stopped. Like for instance, I recently stopped lifting. I wasn't lifting as much weights as I had been since the AT. And I started noticing things that I couldn't do anymore that I used to be able to do. And that bothered me significantly. So like, okay, I need to get back, because there is a freedom to, and with that freedom is just what life is about. It's just such enjoyment to be able to go out and do these things and be capable of doing them. And with fitness, with your cardio and with your strength, you're capable of doing just amazing things, truly amazing things. And so I do it because it's just so freeing.
Mhm.
To me, it's I don't know. I guess I really enjoy um, living life to its full potential, and so being able to have those kind of like superhero abilities, I kind of think of them as superhero abilities, because I think we're doing things that like are kind of unimaginable. At least at one point in my life, they definitely were. Like I couldn't imagine running a 50K. Like I remember when a 50K was crazy,
A
and now,
marathon. A
yeah,
marathon is crazy. The
yeah,
first guy who ran a marathon died, and then here we are doubling that distance.
yeah, and like a 50 miler for me now is something that, and then I might be on the far end of the spectrum, but like I don't really think about it. Like, oh, so that's great. That's a good run for the day. Like
Yeah.
I feel good after that. So like that, I do it for I do it for that reason, and I think that kind of makes me feel good for some reason. I don't, it makes me feel
It,
really good. Um,
it, it does. It adds a
It does.
richness to life, because it's not, life isn't about feeling good all the time. And it's something, I mean, actually, and you kind of went through this recently, and maybe it's too much for the podcast, but watching my mom pass a few weeks ago, and going through that, and then like I've brought this analogy up several times, but 100-mile race idea, that's life in a day. and you really like you just go through all the stages, all the suffering, the highs, the lows, everything you can possibly imagine in this kind of compressed time, but it
Mhm.
feels like a lifetime while you're doing it.
That's
And it's
it.
amazing that you can put your body through that experience. You know,
Yeah,
it's
it's a really big experience. And it's you know it's kind of a life changing experience, and you get to do it multiple times.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and like that's why you need to start lifting weights because you can prolong that significantly. I mean, you're losing what 4 to 5% of your muscle now every year just
Yeah,
because of
don't
your.
remind me. It's true. Yeah. Yeah, no,
But
it's
you
true.
think add muscle mass, it's like an insurance policy for past middle age.
Yeah,
Yeah.
More
and you
muscle
will
mass
start
you
to
have.
enjoy it when you start also noticing the results that you get from it. So you know you can't put a jet engine on a paper airplane. Not that you're a paper airplane, but
That's true.
you're going to run yourself into the ground.
Yeah, no, I am putting some strength training in there, and
Okay.
so I'm working on it. I am
All right.
working
Good.
on it. So gotta be ready for the Music City 100 or the Hardwin 100 here in a couple of years. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You'll be big, you'll be huge by then.
Right.
So well, John, I appreciate you coming on and talking with us today. I think it was a good
Yeah,
conversation, and
Thanks.
I
absolutely.
appreciate the things you do for the running community here in Middle Tennessee as well. It's
Yeah.
been a
Thanks you guys for
pleasure participating in your activities, your events. So
thanks for putting this podcast together. And you know, thanks for all the support as well. Appreciate it. And I'm you know, I think it is important. I'm sorry about the loss of your mother.
thank you.
I know that's a hard thing to go through. So
I appreciate that.
amen.